Okay, last time we were looking at how to make scatter plots using Excel. We were talking about these ice cream sales versus the temperature of the day for the business that was running near the park there. There is some gaps in this data though. Just say that the forecast tomorrow is going to tell the people that they're expecting it to be about 21 degrees. Not 121, holy cow. Be more than needing ice cream if it was that hot. So 21 degrees. But there's no actual data on our information that actually gives us that. We have to actually interpolate that data, which is what we're going to have a look at now. We're actually going to have a look at interpolation and extrapolation. Okay, so interpolation then is where we actually think about a number that is inside the range of data that we already are dealing with, like this 21. So on the screen that we have over here, you can see that 21 is within the range of the data that we've been dealing with. Okay, so that means that we will be able to try and think about what they would expect to sell on that day. So let's do that. Let's have a look at the actual maths involved in this interpolation. All right, we know that the equation for our ice cream sales was this one. Y is equal to 30.088x minus 159.47. Yeah, we did that last video. So what we want to do is actually imagine then what will happen if we give x a value. We're saying if x is equal to 21, well, what does y become? So we put that information into our equation, multiply our new value for x by the gradient, take away that 159, and we end up with a value of 472.37. So this shop could expect to sell somewhere around $427.37. That is the data that we have. We have interpolated it. Now that doesn't mean that that's exactly what they'll sell. Not at all. Like, it might be a public holiday tomorrow. There might be twice as many people in the park. It might be a quarantine. There might be no one in the park and the shop has to close and they make nothing. Okay, so it really does depend on the external factors, but just looking at the numbers and the data that they've gathered in the past, that's how much they would expect to make. Okay, so that is interpolation. Let's have a talk about extrapolation. Now, extrapolation is when we are considering the information that exists outside of this data. Okay, so we're talking about numbers above the 25 that we don't have, and we're talking about the numbers that are less than 12 that we don't really have information for. Okay, so this shop, it's a business, it runs all year. I was interested to see what happens in winter. Some days it gets pretty cold, so I wonder how much money they make on a day like that. So let's extrapolate. Let's take this information and we will apply some thinking. If x is 4, I probably showed too much there. What happens when the temperature outside is 4 degrees, when it's really cold, right? Well, we do the same process that we did before. We take our formula. Here it is. Y is equal to 30.088 multiplied by our value for x, which was 4, take away our constant. And we get that they make negative $39.12. Does that make any sense? Well, no, not really. It's difficult when you're extrapolating data, that when you're outside the bounds of what you have. Sometimes these values don't make a lot of sense. What this really, the story is telling, is that if the shop opens, they actually will lose money. They make negative money. Which I guess, if you think about it, if it is really cold and no one goes in, I guess they do lose money. But whether they lose that much, I don't know. Sometimes you can't trust data that is extrapolated. It's very difficult to validate that information because there's so many other things that are going on. I was curious, though, to see at what point, using our information, does the shop actually make money? So I thought about how would you actually do that? Well, you would have to do that by considering when y is 0. When the actual money that they make is 0, what's the temperature? When do they break even, in other words? So this time when I substitute into the formula, I actually still have an unknown value for x because I don't know what the temperature is where they break even, where they make $0. I did the maths for it and I have found that they break even when the temperature is at about 5.3 degrees, which again doesn't really mean anything. This might not actually be a linear regression line. It might actually be exponential, and we just haven't seen enough data to show that. Okay, it might be quadratic. I don't know. We just don't have enough data here. Okay, so that is basically how to interpolate and extrapolate information based on our scatter plot.